I want you to imagine, just for a second, walking into this vast, completely silent library.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Yeah, so you look around and you realize pretty quickly, this isn't a normal library. This space contains exactly 550 distinct biographies.
Right.
And here is the catch that, completely alters how you read them. They are all about the exact same person. Or, if we're being more accurate, the exact same consciousness.
It really is a staggering concept to wrap your mind around because, you could pull a book off a shelf and read about a life lived as a really wealthy, shrewd merchant. And then you just step one aisle over, pull down another volume, and that same consciousness is navigating the world as a fairy, or a king, or a monkey, or even like a magnificent golden deer.
It's so wild. And all of them, like every single one of those 550 lives, they are steps on this epic, multi-lifetime quest for ultimate enlightenment. So today, we are taking a deep dive into the architecture of those lifetimes. We are pulling our material from excerpts of E.B. Cowell's landmark translation of the Jataka.
Which is just a foundational text.
Yeah, absolutely. For those of you who might not be steeped in this, the Jataka is a massive, incredibly beloved collection of ancient Buddhist fables.
And our mission for this deep dive is to really unpack how these ancient tales function on a mechanical level. Because what you quickly discover is that they aren't just, simple bedtime stories or archaic myths.
Right, they're much more than that.
They really are. By examining a select handful of these tales, and we're going to look at everything from like gritty desert survival to riddles posed by flesh-eating water demons, we're going to uncover how the Jatakas blend really gripping narrative tension with profound moral philosophy.
It's basically the ancient Buddhist playbook for navigating the hardest, most intractable challenges life throws at you.
That's a great way to put it.
So let's start by unpacking the blueprint itself, because every single Jataka follows a very specific, almost mathematical formula.
Yes, the dual timeline structure.
Exactly. It's a dual timeline narrative. You always begin with what the text calls the story of the present.
Right.
This is a specific event happening in the historical Buddha's life. Somebody nearby is struggling, maybe a monk has failed at something, or a follower is asking a really desperate question.
And that immediate real-world friction is what prompts the Buddha to reveal a story of the past.
Right.
That past narrative is a previous existence where he was the Bodhisattva, which translates to the future Buddha dealing with the exact same thematic issue.
The structure is just quite brilliant, honestly.
It is. And they always conclude with a poetic verse, which is called a gatha. And then the Buddha essentially unmasks the characters. He identifies who the historical figures from the past life are in the present day.
Which I love. It grounds these wildly mythical, expansive tales in a relatable, incredibly human problem that, you, the listener, might be facing today.
Absolutely.
Which brings us perfectly into the very first story from our sources, the Vannupatha Jataka.
Oh, this is a great one.
The story of the present here revolves around a monk who has just hit a wall. He has totally given up. He's been meditating for months, getting absolutely nowhere, and he's completely lost heart.
Yeah, he's totally burned out.
Right. I think anyone who has experienced severe burnout can relate to this guy. Yeah. So to help him, the Buddha tells a story about a merchant caravan lost in a desert.
And the source material goes out of its way to describe a truly terrifying environment.
It really does. It's a wilderness 60 leagues across. The sand is so fine it just slips right through your closed fist. And by day, the sand gets as hot as a bed of charcoal embers.
You literally can't even stand on it when the sun is up. The sheer physics of the environment force the caravan to travel exclusively by night.
Wow.
Yeah, they are essentially voyaging over a vast, hostile ocean of sand, relying on a designated desert pilot who navigates by reading the stars.
And then, of course, the crisis hits. They are on their very last night of travel. They're so confident they'll clear the desert by dawn that they actually throw away their extra water and firewood.
Just to lighten the load on the oxen.
Right. But the desert pilot is, entirely exhausted. He falls asleep on his couch in the front cart. And without his guidance, the oxen slowly veer off course and just turn around in the dark.
It's just a disaster.
Total disaster. When the sun finally comes up, they are right back where they started the day before.
And the psychological collapse of the crew is immediate. They just fling themselves under the carts in absolute despair. They know they are doomed.
But the Bodhisattva, who in this past life is the leader of the caravan, he knows that if he surrenders to that same despair, every single person dies.
Right, he has to do something.
So he forces himself to scout around in the cool morning air, and out in this completely barren wasteland, he spots a tiny, solitary clump of kusa grass.
Just this one little sign of life.
Yeah, and he deduces that this grass can only exist if there is water somewhere underground. So he orders his exhausted crew to dig.
Which is a huge ask for people who have just given up.
Exactly. But they dig 60 cubits down, which is roughly 90 feet through the earth, and they hit solid rock.
Oh, man.
I know, again, the crew loses heart. But the Bodhisattva climbs all the way down into that dark hole, puts his ear against the stone, and hears the faint sound of water flowing underneath.
Such a tense moment.
It is. He calls down a young serving lad, hands him an iron sledgehammer, and tells him he simply cannot give up. The kid swings with everything he has, smashes the rock, and a geyser of water shoots up as high as a palm tree. They survive.
It is a brilliantly paced, highly dramatic climax.
I completely agree. I love the drama of the geyser.
Oh.
But I have to say, I'm a bit tripped up by the underlying message here.
Oh, how so?
Well, when I read this, it felt a lot like a modern hustle culture survival guide, like keep swinging the hammer, never quit.
I can see that.
How does gritty, muscular physical survival fit into a text about achieving spiritual nirvana? I always picture Buddhist enlightenment as something very passive and peaceful, like, just sitting quietly under a tree.
Right. And that is a really common misconception, actually, that enlightenment is purely passive. In Buddhist thought, the physical struggle and the spiritual struggle are deeply intertwined.
Okay.
Consider how the physical desert trapping the merchant perfectly mirrors the monk's spiritual desert in the present day. The monk has given up on his meditation because he hit an internal wall.
Just like the diggers hitting that solid rock 90 feet down.
Yes, exactly. The story illustrates that achieving a spiritual breakthrough requires the exact same relentless, sledgehammer-swinging perseverance as surviving a literal desert.
Oh, wow.
The water beneath the rock represents nirvana, or deep spiritual insight, but you cannot reach it unless you refuse to surrender to the psychological heat, the exhaustion, and that overwhelming urge to just lie down under the cart and quit.
You have to break the rock.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. So if that story's about raw physical perseverance, this next one, the Cullaka-Setthi Jataka, shifts gears completely.
It really does. It focuses heavily on intellectual resourcefulness.
Yeah, it shows how the Jatakas view intelligence and wealth.
The present-day narrative here is actually quite heartbreaking, I think. It features a monk named Little Wayman. And poor Little Wayman is considered by everyone to be a total dullard.
Which is just sad.
It is. In 4 whole months at the monastery, he cannot memorize a single 4-line stanza. He is deemed so hopeless that his own brother actually kicks him out of the monastery. He's just standing at the gates weeping.
But the Buddha steps in. And he doesn't give Little Wayman a massive book to study, right?
No, not at all.
Instead, he hands him a perfectly clean piece of cloth. He tells Little Wayman to sit facing the sun, rubbing the cloth, and repeating a very simple phrase, removal of impurity.
And the mechanism of what happens next is profound. As Little Wayman sits in the hot sun rubbing this cloth, he begins to sweat.
Naturally.
The dirt and oils from his hands transfer to the pristine fabric, and it becomes soiled. Watching this real-time decay triggers a massive philosophical realization.
Because the clean cloth represents the mind.
Yes. And the dirt represents earthly attachments and impurities accumulating over time. By witnessing this physical impermanence, his mental block just shatters. He instantly achieves arahatship, which is the highest level of enlightenment.
It's an incredible transformation for someone everyone else wrote off as completely foolish.
Truly.
But then the Buddha explains why Little Wayman had that capacity by telling the story of his past life. And this is where the text applies that exact same principle of focused attention to, of all things, extreme wealth building.
Right. It's such a pivot.
Walk us through this past life, because the sequence of events is just wild.
It truly is wild. So in this past life, Little Wayman is a poor, struggling young man. The Bodhisattva, meanwhile, is a wildly wealthy treasurer.
Okay.
One day, the Bodhisattva points to a dead mouse lying in the street and casually remarks, "A shrewd man could start a business with that."
A dead mouse.
A dead mouse. And the young man overhears this and actually takes him seriously.
Wait, he picks up a dead mouse off the street.
He does. And he walks to a local tavern and sells that dead mouse for a farthing to feed their cat.
Oh my God.
Then he takes that single farthing and buys a small amount of molasses. He finds some flower gatherers who are
Okay, I see where this is going.
He sells the flowers, uses the money to buy more molasses, and repeats the process until he has 8 pennies.
So he's already scaled up from a piece of literal garbage on the street.
Exactly. But he doesn't stop there. A severe storm hits the city and knocks down a bunch of branches in the royal garden. The young man goes to the overwhelmed gardener and offers to clear the debris for free on the condition that he gets to keep the wood.
That's clever.
Right. He then goes to a playground, bribes a group of children with some of his molasses to do all the heavy lifting, and sells the massive pile of wood to the king's potter for 16 pennies and 5 bowls.
It's basically the ancient equivalent of outsourcing.
It really is. And it accelerates even further. He sets up a water station to provide free drinks for 500 grass mowers. Out of gratitude, they each give him a bundle of grass.
So he corners the grass market.
Pretty much. He holds on to it until a desperate horse dealer comes to town looking for fodder, and he sells the grass for 1,000 pieces of money.
Wow.
And finally, he hears a massive cargo ship has arrived in port. He rents an opulent carriage so he looks like a highly established merchant, goes down to the docks, and buys the entire ship's cargo on credit.
Just on credit.
Yep. He then flips that cargo to 100 other merchants, walking away with 200,000 pieces of money.
That is absolutely unbelievable. Listening to that progression, it sounds exactly like that modern internet story from a few years ago.
Oh, the red paperclip guy.
Yeah. The guy who traded a red paperclip for a pen, then for a doorknob, and just kept trading up until he owned a house.
It's the exact same concept.
But I have to ask, isn't this just ancient hyper-capitalism? How does this story of relentless market trading relate to the spiritual enlightenment of a monk crying over a dirty cloth?
I know, it seems like a massive contradiction at first glance. One is about hoarding wealth, the other is about shedding earthly attachments. But look at the underlying mechanism here.
Okay.
Both the dead mouse and the clean cloth demand the exact same mental state. The power of intensely concentrated focus and the complete abandonment of conventional value.
The abandonment of conventional value, meaning like not seeing things the way society tells you to see them.
Precisely that. The Buddhist lesson here is that immense transformations do not require grand, intimidating starting points. When the young man looked at the dead mouse, he abandoned his ego. He didn't see trash. He saw an initial point of leverage.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Similarly, when Little Wayman looked at the cloth, he didn't just see dirty laundry. He saw the fundamental truth of the universe's decay. Both breakthroughs required a mind that is entirely present, paying absolute attention to the smallest, seemingly worthless thing right in front of them.
So, if true power comes from redefining the value of things right in front of you like a mouse or a cloth, what happens when that focused attention shifts from the marketplace to matters of life, death, and morality?
Now we're getting into the really high-stakes stories.
Exactly. That brings us to the Devadhamma Jataka. We are leaving the city now and entering a realm of monsters and riddles.
This is a deeply revealing story about how the Jatakas view ethics as the ultimate form of power.
Yeah, the setup involves 3 princes. The eldest is Mahasa, who is our Bodhisattva, and his 2 younger half-brothers, Prince Moon and Prince Sun.
And due to some really dangerous palace intrigue involving their stepmother, the 3 of them are exiled deep into the forest.
Right. And after days of wandering, the Bodhisattva sends the 2 younger brothers to a beautiful pool to get water. But there's a trap.
A deadly one.
This pool was given to a water sprite by a higher deity with a very specific lethal condition. The sprite is allowed to devour anyone who enters the water, unless they know the answer to a riddle.
And the riddle is, what is truly godlike? Or, in their ancient language, what is Devadhamma?
Prince Sun goes down first. The water sprite asks him the riddle, and the prince guesses that the sun and the moon are truly godlike. The sprite says, "You don't know," and just drags him screaming into his underwater prison.
Then, when he doesn't return, Prince Moon goes down.
And he guesses the 4 quarters of heaven.
Which is also wrong. He is also dragged into the depths.
Finally, the Bodhisattva goes to investigate. He sees the footprints leading into the water, but, not coming out. And he realizes it's a demon's pool. So he girds his sword, gets his bow, and waits.
The demon tries to trick him by popping out of the water disguised as a friendly forester.
But the Bodhisattva sees right through the illusion. He essentially tells him, "I know you took my brothers, and I know the answer to your riddle."
And the answer the Bodhisattva provides is an absolute cornerstone of Buddhist philosophy. He tells the demon that the truly godlike are not celestial bodies or directions on a compass. The truly godlike are those who shrink from sin, the white-souled, tranquil votaries of good. He shifts divinity away from magic and raw power and defines it entirely by moral purity.
The demon is actually so impressed by this answer that he offers to give back just one brother. And here's where the ultimate ethical test happens.
Right, the choice.
The Bodhisattva chooses to save Prince Sun, the youngest half-brother, instead of his soul brother, Prince Moon.
Which surprises the demon.
Completely. But he explains to the demon that the whole reason they are exiled in the forest is because of Prince Sun's mother trying to steal the throne. If the Bodhisattva returns to the palace without the youngest child, everyone will assume he murdered the kid out of revenge.
He chooses the youngest to avoid the odium of favoring his own bloodline.
Exactly. He proves he actually practices the godlike, selfless behavior he just preached about.
It's a stunning moment. He doesn't just intellectualize the philosophy, He embodies it in a moment of extreme life or death pressure, even at the cost of leaving his full brother behind.
It really reminds me of the riddle of the Sphinx in Greek mythology, but with a major difference.
How so?
Well, the Sphinx asks for a clever piece of trivia about a man walking on 2, 3, and 4 legs. But this demon demands a moral philosophy. Still, I'm wondering about the mechanics of this standoff.
Okay.
The Bodhisattva brought a sword and a bow. He knows he's dealing with a monster who literally eats people. Why does he bother talking to the demon, answering riddles, and debating philosophy instead of just fighting him?
Oh, that question cuts to the very heart of Buddhist conflict resolution. In this worldview, the water sprite isn't just a two-dimensional evil monster to be slain in combat. The Bodhisattva perceives the karmic reality of the situation. He realizes the demon is acting out of bad karma generated from a past life. He actually tells the sprite, "It is in consequence of your own evil deeds in times past that you have now been born a demon subsisting on the flesh and blood of other living creatures."
Ah, I see. So if the Bodhisattva draws his sword and kills the demon, he's just perpetuating that same cycle of violence.
Exactly. It would be a failure of his own enlightenment. Instead of slaying the monster, he preaches to him. He terrifies the demon with the karmic consequences of his actions, and then he converts him.
Wow.
And the story doesn't even end there. When the Bodhisattva eventually reclaims his rightful kingdom, he actually builds a sanctuary for the water sprite and ensures he is fed with choice garlands and food.
So they live in harmony.
Yes. The ultimate victory in the Jatakas isn't destroying your enemy, it is enlightening your enemy. It's about completely breaking the cycle of bad karma.
Enlightening your enemy, that is incredibly powerful. And if true power is about saving even a demon from its own bad karma, what happens when the Bodhisattva is the one on the chopping block?
That really shifts things.
It fundamentally shifts the stakes in this next story. Let's look at the Nigrodhamiga Jataka. Here, the themes of compassion become a matter of literal life and death in the animal kingdom.
Right. In this particular lifetime, the Bodhisattva is born as King Banyan deer. And the source material paints an incredibly striking visual here.
It's beautiful.
He is a magnificent golden deer with eyes sparkling like round jewels, a mouth as red as scarlet cloth, and hooves that shine as if they were heavily lacquered. He leads a massive herd of 500 deer in the forest.
And nearby is another golden deer named Branch, who leads a rival herd of 500.
But their lives are completely upended by a human king in Benares who is absolutely obsessed with hunting.
Right, he is disrupting the whole town's agricultural work every single day just to go kill deer. So the townsfolk come up with a brutal solution.
They drive both herds into the king's royal plaisance, which is essentially an enclosed, manicured park, and they lock the gates.
They basically turn the forest into an ancient factory farm so the king can just stroll in and shoot them without any effort.
It's a completely terrifying reality for the animals. Every time the king or his royal cook enters the park to shoot one of them, the herds panic, they stampede, and a lot of deer are horrifically injured or killed just in the sheer chaos of it.
So unnecessary.
Seeing in this pointless suffering, King Banyan deer approaches Branch deer and proposes a deeply grim but practical agreement. They establish a lottery system.
Oh, this part is so dark.
One day, a deer from Banyan's herd will voluntarily walk to the execution block and offer its neck. The next day, one from Branch's herd will do the same. It is a sacrifice to prevent the daily mass panic.
It is incredibly bleak. They essentially organize their own slaughter, but then, of course, the system breaks down. The lot falls on a pregnant doe from Branch's herd.
Yeah.
She goes to Branch and begs to be passed over, just until her fawn is born, arguing that it's a sin to take 2 lives for the price of 1 lot. But Branch refuses. He tells her the rules are the rules, and she has to face her fate.
So desperate, she goes to Banyan Deer.
And Banyan does something completely unthinkable. He tells her she is safe. He then walks to the royal execution block and lays his own golden head down in her place.
When the royal cook comes out and sees the king of the deer lying on the block, he is so shocked he drops his tools and runs to fetch the human king.
I mean, I would be too.
The human king rushes over and asks Banyan why he is there, pointing out that he had previously granted the 2 golden deer immunity from the hunt.
And Banyan explains that he couldn't, in good conscience, pass the pregnant dew's burden to another, so he assumed the debt himself.
The human king is completely shattered by this. He says, "I never yet saw, even among men, one so abounding in charity, love, and pity." He instantly spares Banyan and the pregnant doe.
But Banyan, being the Bodhisattva, doesn't stop there. While he has the king's ear, he negotiates immunity for all the deer in the park, then all 4-footed creatures in the kingdom, then all birds, then all fish.
He systematically secures safety for every living thing.
It's a really beautiful ending, but I have to ask you about the mechanics of this universe. We have a literal golden deer lying on a butcher's block, eloquently preaching ethics to a human king.
Yeah, it's quite an image.
For a modern listener, does attributing such high-level moral reasoning to an animal break the reality of the fable?
Well, for a modern listener accustomed to strict biological realism, it definitely requires a shift in perspective. To understand the Jatakas, you really have to grasp how they view the soul.
Okay, walk me through that.
In this cosmology, consciousness is fluid across the barrier of species. Think of a singular consciousness like water. In one life, it is poured into a human-shaped vessel. In the next, due to the wheel of karma and rebirth, it is poured into a deer-shaped vessel.
Oh, so the golden deer isn't an animal with human thoughts. It is an awakened consciousness temporarily occupying an animal body.
Exactly that. The body does not dictate the capacity for morality. By placing the ultimate act of self-sacrifice, giving one's life for a stranger, into the body of a prey animal, the story is making a radical argument to the listener.
That true nobility is defined entirely by compassion.
Yes, regardless of the physical form you inhabit, look at the dynamic. The human king, despite his royal form and supposed superiority, is acting blindly as a predator. The deer, despite his animal form, is acting with divine grace. It forces you to completely reevaluate where true moral authority comes from.
That is so profound. So bringing all this back to you, the listener, what does this massive library of lifetimes mean for us today?
We've covered an incredible range of experiences today.
We really have. We've felt the gritty, desperate physical survival of a desert pilot who had to smash 90 feet through solid rock to find spiritual water. We've tracked the bizarre, highly focused economic progression of trading a dead mouse into an absolute fortune. We've watched an exiled prince outwit a flesh-eating demon, not with violence, but with pure karmic ethics. And we've witnessed the ultimate, radical self-sacrifice of a golden deer.
It is a profound collection of strategies for living. And the most important takeaway is to remember the overarching structure of these tales. The architecture implies that every single lifetime, and indeed every single day you experience, is just a story of the present.
Right.
It is a current dilemma, a moment of friction, waiting to be resolved by the wisdom you can access from the past.
I think that is a brilliant way to frame our own lives. And I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder based on that idea. If you were forced to look at your most frustrating current problem right now, whether that's a wildly stubborn colleague, a creative project that has completely failed, or just a deep, lingering feeling of burnout, what if you stopped looking at it as a dead end?
Yeah. What if you viewed it as a test of your ultimate character?
Exactly. How would your story of the present end? When you walk into that silent library of 550 lifetimes and you pull the book with today's date on it off the shelf. Wait, scratch that. When you pull the book with today's date on it off the shelf, what do you want that page to say?
Will you be the one who drops the sledgehammer in the sand or the one who strikes the rock?
We'll see you on the next Deep Dive.